Memorial Lecture. Let us begin the session with a minute silence and pray to Almighty that we all remain safe and healthy and the whole world overcomes these gloomy times. And also especially to say a word of prayer for the souls of all those known and unknown ones who have succumbed to their fate during these challenging times. Continue to be seated wherever you are and close your eyes for a minute. Thank you and good evening once again, and welcome to this edition of the Professor K.T. Chandy Memorial Lecture. As you know, every year we have 3 memorial lectures organized by Kerala Management Association, commemorating the lives and contributions of 3 doyens of management education and administration, and who played important roles in shaping up KMA to where it is today too. Sri M.K. Nair, Professor M.V. Paili, and Professor K.T. Chandy. These memorial lecture sessions over the years have seen many celebrated speakers from the industry and academia coming over and delivering keynote speeches, enlightening and enriching us on many useful and contemporary topics. This year, under the leadership of Chairman for KMA Memorial Lectures, Mr. A.C.K. Nair, we have already had Professor M.V. Paili Memorial Lecture delivered by former president of IMA and group executive president at Aditya Birla Group, Mr. D. Shivakumar, in February, while we had the Management Week celebrations. Today, we are having the next memorial lecture of the year, the 7th Professor K.T. Chandy Memorial Lecture, by yet another distinguished speaker, Mr. R.R. Nair, independent director, CEO, coach, and OD consultant to many Indian and multinational companies. We begin the proceedings with a formal welcome address by Mr. A.C.K. Nair, chairman of the KMA Memorial Lecture Series. Mr. A.C.K. Nair is the member of our managing committee at KMA, and he is the airport director at Cochin International Airport Limited and managing director of the Cochin International Aviation Services Limited, that's the CASL Academy. And he has also served as an elected member of the Asia Pacific Regional Director Board of Airport Council International, which is the only global trade representative of the world's airports. He also serves in the State Advisory Committee as a member of the Kerala State Electricity Regulatory Commission. Mr. A.C.K. Nair, Chairman of Memorial Lectures at KMA, to offer the welcome address now. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, President. And it is a happy occasion that today we are conducting the 2nd memorial lecture of K.T. Chandy Memorial Lecture. And one is already done, as President is mentioned, and one more we left out, and we will be planning for that also. And luckily we have a very eminent speaker today, Mr. R.R. Nair. And as it is mentioned, we have 3 memorial lectures. And now left out is M.K. Nair Memorial Lecturer. KMA is always remembering the leaders who has been contributed their lifetime for the development of management association, Kerala Management Association, as well as the industrial development of Kerala. That is why these three eminent persons are being remembered through the memorial lectures. And the second is of this year, this time. I'm just passing over to my responsibility. See, our president, Mr. Madhav Chandran, is very vibrant personality, and in spite of this COVID situations, the KMA is going ahead with all regular programs through the video conferencing, and we are not, even all the management committee members and the members of the KMA never felt that are we facing a COVID situation, because regular programs have been charted out, and we've been following up with all the committee members and different committee chairmen to conduct the events in time. And I heartily welcome our president, Mr. Madhav Chandran, for this particular memorial lecture. Say our remembrance speech is made by our former KMA president, Mr. A.K. Nair. I think we all know that he is doyen in the management and former MD of KSIDC and was the MD of KCPL. And he was contributor-led a lot for the development of industrial development in Kerala, especially in Cochin. He was settled in Cochin, and now he has been sitting in Trivandrum, but he never feel that he is apart from Cochin by attending the most of the KMA meeting through the video conferencing. And whenever we requested him to have a remembrance meeting, because very rare people only available who was directly in personally contacted or personally having the association with our great KT Chandy. So he's been agreed to deliver the remembrance speech. Welcome AK Nair sir for this particular event. And next I have to remember the name of, or I have to welcome our the key person who will be made his effort to get the eminent speaker today, none other than Mr. V.R. Nair. I think 2 memorial lectures, he was instrumental in getting the good speakers for these memorial lectures. And I heartily welcome Mr. V.R. Nair for this particular event. So our chief guest of this particular memorial lecture and particularly this event, Mr. R.R. Nair, as Mr. President was mentioning, is very eminent speaker, and is a coach for CXOs and CEOs from diverse industrial sector. He is also a consultant to HR strategy and leadership and organizational development. He is an independent director to various organizations and very eminent speaker of and so I'm heartily welcoming Mr. R.R. Nair sir for this particular event. And I also welcome our secretary Jomon for this event, and also welcome all other participants for this particular event. And anyway, about KT Chandy, I am not mentioning about him. He was I was a doyen of the management, and he was a father of Indian Management Institute, Calcutta, and he was made lot of contribution for the development of management in Kerala, and he is considered one of the global pioneers in social marketing. He was a chairman of FCA and Hindustan Steels. He served as the vice chairman of State Planning Board also. So many things has to be told about KT Chandy, but that in detail our AK Nair sir will tell about him. So I conclude by my welcome speech and welcoming once again all the participants for this event, and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Mr. A.C.K. Nair. Good evening once again to our special guest of the evening, Mr. R.R. Nair. Welcome you, sir. Dr. Thomas Chandy, son of Professor KT Chandy, who is present here. Welcome to you, sir, to this evening function. It's a very proud moment as a son, and all of us also proud and happy that you're here. All the past presidents present here, Mr. A.K. Nair, Mr. Jose Philip, Mr. S.R. Nair, Mr. Rajmohan Nair, Mr. Prem Chand, Mr. Vivek Krishna Govind, Mr. Jibu Paul, I can't see many more on the screen, Senior Vice President Nirmala, Vice President A. Balakrishnan, Secretary Jomon George, Joint Secretary Algiers, Memorial Lecture Committee member, Mr. V.R. Nair, other managing committee members, members of KMA and other LMAs, students and invited guests. As Mr. A.C.K. Nair said, in spite of the complete lockdown for over a month and the related challenges over the last 1.5 years, KMA has been conducting its regular activities with a multitude of events like the Leader Talk series with eminent speakers from industry, profession, and academia, having done 14 of them till now this year itself. The StartCon sessions, trademark of our past president, Mr. S.R. Nair, with successful startup companies, 6 such sessions till now showcasing 12 such entrepreneurs. Women Managers Forum activities, in fact, 7 of the events in the last 7 months, management education programs, master classes, and even big ticket events like the Management Week celebrations with 5 days of activities, including a global virtual run, student management convention, KMA Digital Summit, etc., and the Professor M.V. Piley Memorial Lecture. We also came out with 6 issues of the KMA News magazine over the 6 months, and the latest edition of May featuring our Chief Minister, Sri Pinarayi Vijayan, and his unique leadership and management traits has come out during these complete lockdown days. You all must have seen the soft copy of the same, and the print version has already been posted or couriered to your addresses. In case any of you who is not getting the copy or missing out being in our mailing list, please contact our secretariat today to get your copy. Well, today we have yet another important event of our KMA calendar, the Professor KT CHANDY Memorial Lecture. This lecture is an annual event organized in the memory of the late professor, who was a doyen of management education and administration and made all from our state so proud of his accomplishments and contributions in the field of management. Professor CHANDY, who was a founder director of Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, was also part of the leadership team at Lever Brothers, which was later renamed as the Hindustan Levers Limited, and served as its chairman. Something that I found astonishing, as what Mr. A.C.K. Nair said, is that professor is considered as one of the global pioneers of the concept of social marketing, the practice of applying commercial marketing approaches for behavioral changes and social benefit. He did that as deep in the past as in 1961, while conceiving and implementing the current National Family Planning Program. And the social marketing principles were first introduced while considering the ways for the distribution of contraceptive materials across the country, condoms. Trendsetting indeed. He went on to be appointed later as the chairman of Food Corporation of India, chairman of Hindustan Steel Limited, which is now part of Steel Authority of India Limited, and returning to Kerala later on to take over as the chairman of Kerala State Industries Development Corporation, a position he served, I believe, till 1978. What an illustrious career in management and leadership, and KMA has been for the past 1 decade, commemorating his life by having this Professor KT CHANDY Memorial Lecture. Before we move on to the much awaited memorial lecture, we have an opportunity with someone here who had the proud privilege of knowing Professor CHANDY closely enough to take us through a memory lane of his experiences and anecdotes connected to this doyen of management education and practice. Mr. A.K. Nair, one of our senior former presidents at Kerala Management Association, has such close observations and encounters with Professor KT CHANDY that he will deliver a brief remembrance speech on the late leader. Mr. Nair, a former managing director of KSIDC and Nita Gelatin India Limited, is an accomplished management professional with a proven track record both in the public and private sectors. He has the dual distinction of being a past president both at KMA and also at the Trivandrum Management Association, where he is residing now. Currently settled down there, Nair sir makes it a point to attend almost all our programs at KMA. Thank you all, and over to Mr. A.K. Nair to deliver the remembrance speech on Professor KT CHANDY. Over to you, sir. You got to unmute. You got to unmute, please.
I thought since I was muted by the host, I thought the host himself will unmute me. Thank you, Madhav, for the nice introduction. And I am Mr. Sar Nair, Mr. R.R. Nair, Mr. Madhav, and my dear friends. It is indeed commendable that KMA has instituted this annual commemorative lecture series in honor of CHANDY sir, who is one of the most worthy sons of Kerala, and as already mentioned, who could aptly be called the father of management education in India. I thank you, Madhav, for calling upon me to present my memories of that great person with whom I had the good fortune to work for a couple of years. CHANDY sir was endowed with special faculties and opportunities, and he had the ability and potential to convert them all into realities. It's a rare test of dynamic leadership. Over long years of service as a practicing manager, he dignified his occupation with a zeal for its honor. In a world characterized by selfishness, prejudice, and political favors, I must say that by harsh experience and facing ruthless competition, he stood tall as a beacon to a whole generation of managers and management students. He had been a role model to our generation, to the managers of our generation. He never went after opportunities and positions. Government and institutions went after him, offering opportunities and positions. Professor CHANDY belonged to a different generation, and as such, many among the audience may not be aware of, may not be knowing CHANDY sir in his different facets in life. for their benefit, I shall briefly give the story of his life. Born on 13th January 1913, Professor Chandy graduated from Madras Christian College in the year 1932 and went on to join the London School of Economics for a master's in law. Thereafter, he was called to the bar from the Middle Temple. In the London School of Economics and in the Middle Temple, I was told that Professor Chandy was also the classmate of Mr. P.N. Huxer, the most powerful principal secretary of the most powerful chief prime minister of India, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. In London, he was also the contemporary of V.K. Krishna Menon, former defense minister. Incidentally, friends, I have never seen him using the prefix barrister or the suffix Bharatla to his name anywhere. In career and business, Professor Chandy worked in and led various companies. As mentioned earlier, he was director of Lever Brothers in 1950. He joined as a director. He became a director of Lever Brothers in 1956, and he played an important role in the formation of the Indian company Hindustan Lever Limited, which was later renamed as Hindustan Unilever. And he was also the director, legal services of the company. I don't know that whether he became the chairman. In 1961, Dr. B.C. Roy, the first chief minister of West Bengal, he invited Professor Chandy to set up the first Indian Institute of Management at Calcutta. Incidentally, I'll briefly mention about B.C. Roy. He was an eminent physician, and his name award has been instituted for the best doctor in India. It is like a Nobel Prize for doctors. In India, in Kerala, Dr. Valithan and Dr. Krishna Nair. Valithan is the founder of Sri Chitra Institute in Trivandrum. Dr. Krishna Nair is the founder of the RCC in Trivandrum. Both of them have won this award. He invited Professor Chandy to set up this IIM Calcutta, and he set it up with, in collaboration with, I think it was Ford Foundation, I don't remember exactly, Ford Foundation, and in collaboration with Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And he brought it up as an institute of excellence and of unmatched standards of educational excellence. And that is when the government of India invited him to be the chairman of the Food Corporation of India. Later, the very next year, he was appointed as the chairman of the Hindustan Steel. And later it was named as Madhu said, Steel Authority of India Limited, or SAIL. In 1972, at the request of the then Chief Minister of Kerala, one of the most powerful and acclaimed Chief Minister of Kerala, Mr. C.H. Menon, he returned to his home state and joined as the chairman of the Kerala State Industrial Development Corporation, which position he adorned till the year 1979. Concurrently, in 1975, he was also appointed as vice chairman of the Kerala State Planning Board, where he continued till the year 1980. He has also served as the chairman of the National Productivity Council, then the Board of Governors of IIT Madras, chairman of the Asian Productivity Organization, and he was also one of the Indian representatives in the World Council of Churches. And one thing that Arthur omitted, he is the first recipient of the KMA Management Leadership Award after it was instituted in 1979. So his name should be recorded in golden letters in the annals of KMA. Now that you know why KMA Leadership Award has been considered the most coveted for the management professionals in India, because it was won by Professor K.T. Chandy in the first instance. I had the good fortune to work closely with him while he had been the chairman of KSIDC and also in the planning board, state planning board, as the when he was vice chairman, and I was the convener of the industry and infrastructure working group for a number of years. And I was also fortunate to have worked with him as a member of the director boards of some companies in which he was either the chairman or a senior director. While serving KSIDC as its chairman, he was responsible for bringing some major investments in Kerala. 3 of them I'll mention. Nitajalat in India, of which I was also the managing director for some time. He himself discussed with the technical and financial collaborators, Nitajalat in Osaka, and he was the person responsible for tying up the know-how transfer agreement and also the promotional agreement. And the next one is the Carbon and Chemicals Limited, which is now a unit of Philips Carbon. Philips Carbon is a member of the group of Goenka companies. And the next is Kerala Minerals and Metals, which many people do not know. It's a government company, the biggest public sector company into the state sector. He was primarily responsible for identifying the collaborator, going there on behalf of the government, he going there and tying up the collaboration and drafting out the phased manufacturing program and the know-how transfer agreements. And he was also the founder chairman for all these three companies and left it only after they they streamlined their operations. Friends, it was always a pleasure to work with him and also to watch him performing. A 6-footer, always clad in only white dhoti and juba. He had a personality which elicited instant respect. See, I have seen him only in juba and dhoti, in KSIDC, and I have accompanied him for meetings in Delhi. He was always in juba and dhoti only, white juba and white dhoti. And juba is not the today's dhoti of the today's long jubas, but the traditional Kottayam juba. That is what he used to wear. But once I accompanied him to Japan, and when he was on a foreign travel, he was wearing the magnificent suit. The first time I saw him in India in pants and shirts is when he came to present the Management Leadership Award during my period as the president, and S.R. Nair was the secretary. He presented the Management Leadership Award to Venugopal Govind, Vivek's father. At the time, he came in pants and shirts, and I asked him what happened to your traditional dress. He said, I become old and it is becoming inconvenient to wear dhoti. I have to have the cell phone and pouch. It's becoming difficult. So I chose to wear the pants and shirts. He was an unmatched speaker with excellent diction and exemplary delivery. His total commitment to his job, admirable leadership qualities, sharp analytical mind, fearless opinions, and above all, the speed with which he could comprehend complex issues are his special qualities which really fascinated me. In the meetings of planning board, especially the first meeting of the Kerala State Planning Board, where there will be about 30-40 people, the entire cabinet will be there, government secretaries will be there, advisors and experts will be there, and some of us will be invited to sit on the sidelines. He will not speak in advance. He will just make an introductory remark and leave it for the others to make opinions. After hearing the opinions of all the people, he will cull out the salient points of each of the speakers, analyze the pros and cons, and finally he will conclude, giving the best of everybody, and lay down the policy prescription for the whole year. It was a pleasure to watch him perform. As a boss, he was a good listener and encouraged contradicting opinions. He gave us a very wide space to discharge our duties with independence, evaluating us only on the results achieved. I was amazed by his ability to take quick decisions and his tremendous memory. Personally, I have experienced an example of his tremendous memory. My interview for the post of KSIDC was held in 1976 February, and I didn't hear anything after that about the selection. And he was the chief guest in Cochin for the Institution of Engineers when they celebrated the Engineers Day. And he was the chief guest. He was coming, and we were the reception committee lined up on both sides. He passed me, and somehow he saw my face. He turned around and said, "Ms. Nair, yes. Say, why did you join the job in KSIDC?" I said, "I've not heard from you." "Okay, you will get the appointment next week." And next week, the appointment order was issued. After a period of about 6 or 7 months, he still remembered my face. The interview lasted for about 45 minutes, but he had a clear memory, and he remembered my face even after that period of time. Basically, he was a socialist, having been a member of the Students' Federation during his student days. He used to say that I am communist-minded. See, this was very much evident from the policy guidelines he prescribed for the plan documents during his tenure in the State Planning Board. And they were all inclusive in nature. Friend, please note, this was much, much before the word inclusive was used in the central and state planning process. After a glorious life spanning more than about 9 decades, which he led with satisfaction to himself and advantage to the society, Chandy sir was called to the heavenly abode on the 2nd of May 2006. Friends, I consider myself fortunate to have worked with him. and to have known him at close quarters during the time when he has been active. He enjoyed his innings to the hilt, working till his last days. He leaves back pleasant memories of a life usefully completed. I have no doubt that he can claim the esteem of posterity, and he has a special place in the gallery of the greats produced by Kerala in the field of management and administration in the 20th century. The likes of Sardar K.M. Panikkar, B.P. Menon, the first Secretary of State, then Dr. John Mathai, the second Finance Minister, Mr. V.K. Krishnamenon, K.P.S. Menon, and Mr. M.K.K. Nair. Friends, let me conclude by bowing before his memory with humility and awe. Thank you, Madhav, and thank you, friends.
Thank you so much, A.K. Nair, sir, for listing out such an illustrious and rather enviable professional career of the late leader, and for those vivid and interesting anecdotes and character traits of Professor Chandy, which you narrated just now. Indeed, fortunate and lucky are you to have got the opportunity as a president to bestow upon him the KMA Management Leadership Award in the company of Mr. Sir Nair.
Sorry. I did not give him the award. He was invited to present the award to Venugopal Govind.
Great.
He won the award in 1979 after his institute in 79. He was the first recipient of KMA.
First recipient. Thank you. Thanks for the correction. And salutes to that legend who made us all proud as a son of our soil, who went places and left indelible marks and traits of glory wherever he occupied. Thank you, Nair, sir, for that rich tribute. And we move on now to the eagerly awaited keynote lecture. While it's so difficult to think much in these gloomy days of the unprecedented pandemic and the challenges looming large due to the ripple effect that it had this far created in our lives, business, and professions, it has also been so difficult to plan anything with the uncertainty over what is in store, even the very next day. But we all have been pulling on in spite of all the reverses, and KMA too has been trying all options to keep our members engaged, remain positive, and provide with meaningful deliberations and events of utility. This session of the memorial lecture is also intended in that direction, with a very contemporary and topical topic to be explained by yet another Keralite leader who make us all proud. The topic is the much needed can-do spirit in challenging times. Who else can explain it better than an acclaimed coach, mentor, and guide for many CXOs and CEOs? He also shares his career graph with the legend in whose memory we are organizing this event as a former director of HR at Unilever Group of Companies, serving almost 3 decades there before being on the board of several leading Indian and multinational companies. Mr. Ramakrishna Rajashekharan Nair, aka Mr. R.R. Nair, or popularly known as RR, is our chief guest and speaker for the day. Welcome, sir, once again. And for those of you here who wish to know more about his outstanding profile, we have yet another Hindustan Lever person and a close associate of Mr. R.R. Nair, and an alumnus of the same IIT Kharagpur, from where Mr. R.R. also completed his engineering degree. Yet another Nair, our own V.R. Nair of KMA, the former managing committee member and the current member of the Memorial Lectures Committee. VR, as we call him, has been instrumental in getting many such leaders to address various KMA forums, thanks to his own meritorious past in the corporate world and the opportunity he had to rub shoulders with some of the luminaries of the corporate world. Mr. V.R. Nair, member Memorial Lectures Committee, to formally introduce Mr. R.R. Nair. Over to you, V.R.
Thank you, Madhav. President Madhav Chandran, our chief guest of the day, Mr. R.R. Nair, Mr. A.C.K. Nair, Mr. A.K. Nair, Mr. Jomon George, and fellow KMA members. It is indeed a privilege and honor to be invited to introduce our distinguished speaker of the day, Mr. R.R. Nair. R.R., as he is popularly known, and I have been friends for more than 60 years. He is one of my closest friends, and it's a pleasure to be able to introduce him to you all today. We both joined IIT Kharagpur on the same date, he for his post-graduation in industrial psychology and myself for my engineering. Incidentally, as a very happy coincidence, We also have today with us here Mr. Thomas Chandy, son of the late KT Chandy, who also happened to be with us in the same hostel, Nehru Hall in IIT Kharagpur at the same time. Welcome, Mr. Thomas Chandy. So nice to have you also here with us. After IIT, RR and I, we caught up, which our paths crossed nearly 20 years later, when he joined Hindustan Lever from DCM, where he had made his mark in talent spotting and management development. I have watched him grow exponentially, both in his career graph as well as the width of perspectives that he brings to the table. A gentle, well-articulated person with a very sharp mind and visionary thinking. He is much admired in corporate circles, particularly in the HR/HRD fields. He has an amazing network of contacts, many of whom go to him for advice or as sounding boards. The Lifetime Achievement Awards he has received bear testimony to the respect he has earned. I will now share some excerpts from his formal resume. RR is a coach for CXOs and CEOs from diverse industrial sectors, both Indian and MNCs. He is also a consultant to businesses on HR strategy, transformational leadership, and organization development. He holds a master's degree in psychology and an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur, where he obtained his postmaster's diploma in industrial psychology. He was trained by the Tavistock School of Human Relations in the UK in individual and group development processes, and by Hay McBair as a leadership coach. He is an alumnus of both Stanford and Michigan universities through their executive education programs. At Hindustan Lever, he steadily progressed in the company and played a variety of key roles covering the entire gamut of strategic HR. He was the first HR professional who was seconded to Unilever Limited London, where he was responsible for organization structure review, succession planning, and leadership development in over a dozen countries. On his return to India, he served as HR Director and VP for Foods in the Hindustan Unilever Group for a decade. Subsequently, as Chief Human Resources Officer for Unilever Arabia Group in Dubai, RR steered the initiative to support a revised business structure as well as facilitated a major growth-oriented transformation service. Towards the closing phase of his long career with Unilever, he played a larger role for Unilever as a coach and OD advisor for board-level senior leaders in Unilever India, China, Australia, Vietnam, Singapore, Middle East, Malaysia, and Bangladesh. For the past 10 years, RR has been associated with the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, as a coach for their program on leadership skills for top management. The Executive and Business Coaching Foundation India Limited admitted him as an honorary fellow CFI in recognition of his exemplary service lifetime achievement in facilitating the growth of human capital as a coach and mentor. RR has served as an independent director for BASF India, GMR Energy, and the Union Bank of India. He is presently a member of the advisory board of Schneider Electric India and an independent director of Schneider Electric President Limited. He also served on the academic council of the Tata Management Training Center, the Loy Lintas Center for Executive Education, the HR Technical Committee of the Reserve Bank of India, and on the Confederation of Indian Industries National HR Council. RR was chosen by the NHRDN for the National Award for Outstanding Contribution to the HR function, and also later for the Lifetime Achievement Award as well. He was also confirmed the Lifetime Achievement Award by CNBC KPMG. Professor KT Chandy and RR share one common thread. While Professor Chandy is a brilliant legal brain, played the most vital role in the formation of Hindustan Lever Limited, perhaps India's first public limited company way back in 1956. Similarly, RR played a very key role in the merger of all Unilever businesses in India, that is Brook Bond, Lipton, Ponds, Kisan, into one unified company called Hindustan Lever Limited. I can think of no person more apt than RR to deliver the KT Chandy Memorial Lecture today. Thank you. Over to RR.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajan, for your very kind introduction. President Mr. Madhav Chandran and his management committee, past presidents, Mr. Chandy, who happens to be with us, and friends. I really consider as truly privileged and also happy to be with all of you this evening. Privileged because it's an occasion where we are celebrating the life and contribution of an illustrious son of Kerala and an illustrious son of India, a legendary Mr. KT Chandy, whose name still adores the alumni. And when we talk about the legal contribution and the legal profession and the business legal profession in HUL, there are many veterans in the company who still talk about late Mr. KT Chandy. Those who have been privileged to have been associated with him are very few now, because he belonged to an era when Mr. Prakash Tandon was the chairman, the first Indian chairman of HUL. So it's such a privileged opportunity for me to be with all of you this evening. Happy because KMA is a good friend, because there have been a fairly large number of interactions and opportunities to engage with the activities of KMA in the past. And therefore, when Rajan sounded out this idea to me, I grabbed this opportunity to be with you this evening. And then the formal invitation from the president, Mr. Madhav Chandran, followed. So I really consider this to be a very happy evening, coinciding with both the events. The topic on can-do spirit in challenging times, in turbulent times, was actually chosen with the help of Mr. Madhav Chandran. And I think my reflections on this topic will be a manifestation of what I'm sensing around many industry leaders with whom I have been interacting. The wave 1 of last year and the wave 2 that we are experiencing, and we are in the midst of it, I think have provided the opportunity for me to sense what's really going on in different industries and in different types of sectors. And therefore, I thought that it may be useful for me to share some of the perspectives. And I will essentially use 3 lenses through which I am seeing this emergence of the can-do spirit in the midst of turbulent times. One lens is from the lens of managing one's own self. The second one is managing others and leading others. And the third lens is about managing the business. So I think these 3 lenses are very critical to view how this emergence of the can-do spirit is manifesting in the way people are viewing the current challenges. So let me actually start with managing self. There is the initial phase when people got immobilized. So from immobilized self to liberating the self, that's a big shift that I find. From being obsessed with constraints and threats to opportunities and infinite possibilities. What cannot be done to what can be done. Being pessimistic to becoming an optimist. Having a fixed mindset to growth mindset. The pandemic has indeed taught many to reinvent and to reimagine. The biggest of all positive change that I find and I sense from the conversations I'm having is that we have moved to a virtual way of living in every walk of life. And this evening is a wonderful example of how we are virtually connected. And you find here, whether it is working from office to one of working from home, or from working from home to working from anywhere, or the creation of hubs and spoke model, and the emergence of the hybrid model that I see all around, and the emergence and the consolidation of e-commerce, online learning from KG to post-graduation. And just to illustrate the way in which adoption of technology became so palpable and so easy, and that has emerged out of a conviction that necessity is the mother of invention. At the end of it, pandemic is a catalytic agent. Digital technology has been a clear winner. And the realization that we will have to live with COVID, and it will be the new normal, as indeed all of us in this meeting would subscribe that we are now in the new normal. And therefore, the first thought I have on managing self is that people are now realizing that life is comparable to that of four wheels of an automotive. And these four wheels of an automotive represent the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. As long as these four wheels are balanced, you are likely to have a smoother ride, not too much of a bumpy ride. So at the end of it, the adoption of the emotional, the well-being dimension, and the spiritual dimension is on the increase. And this is very, very strongly palpable all around. And I'm sure that all of you would endorse this perspective, that from a managing self perspective, there is a fundamental positive can-do spirit that is emerging. Let me move to the second lens, which is about managing others. In times of crisis, no job is more important than taking care of our team. And what is manifested in this period is the role of compassion. And people are reaching out. Skip-level dialogues are happening. There are plenty of pulse checks which are happening to get a sense of what's going on in the minds and hearts of our employees. People are actually blocking out time on the calendar to reach out to skip levels and to the next skip levels. Many leaders are conducting 20 minutes, 30 minutes, winds down session with a view to get a feel of what's actually going on in their lives. In this process, we are observing a few things. One is trust is getting rebuilt and consolidated. Second is there is a huge level of humility and respect for one another. Empathy and capacity to have reflective conversation with employee groups are becoming strongly evident. People are using appreciative inquiry as a way of reaching out to sense what's happening in the lives and work of people. And above all, people are also learning the art of brevity. Now, each of us is a brand, a unique brand. And availability and visibility are powerful forces to promote and to consolidate brands. And the digital world has given enormous opportunity for leaders at all levels to get connected, and therefore their availability and visibility to employees right across the organization has dramatically gone up. And this has actually created a sense of identity, a sense of engagement, and a sense of purpose among employees at all levels. There is also a great realization that effectiveness is dependent upon two factors. One is the technical aspects of what one does. The other is the acceptance of the individual by the people who work for the organization. On a scale of 10, on technical domain, irrespective of whatever vocation that we undertake, if you are 8 on 10, but our acceptance as an individual leader by others or followers is just about 3, you get an effectiveness equation of 24. On the other hand, even if with an effectiveness dimension of technical competence at about 7 on 10, if someone has got 7 on 10 acceptance, dramatically the effectiveness equation goes up by multiples. In addition to the whole evoking of humility and empathy, which is palpable right across organizational leaders, what I really find is that they are also getting engaged in trying to understand the key drivers of performance and motivation. Do people work for money? Do people need structure, order, and direction? Are people who value relationship and therefore you need to connect through the heart and not necessarily only dependent on the mind? Are people seeking recognition and appreciation? Are people who want to be influenced and provided with the degree of freedom and autonomy for them to contribute? And more leaders are recognizing that more than any of this, what's so significant is their willingness to contribute for a purpose, for the community, for the larger entity of the organization. The number of leaders who are sharing with me about employee engagement with extended enterprise employees, and these are employees engaged by the suppliers or by the dealers, the stockists, is phenomenal. And there is this whole awareness that it is not about taking, but there is joy in giving. And that spirit is manifested in terms of need to fulfill and leave a legacy, despite the pandemic and the challenges people personally have experienced, their families have experienced. So the concern for community also is discovering. Many leaders are saying that they are able to discover some uncut diamonds in their team. They're also spotting some unsung heroes in their team. And there are many shining examples at work. And this is something which is very clearly noticeable right across all types of organizations, sizes, and shapes. Team support helps in deciding with speed over decisions. And there is very little of analysis paralysis that is becoming evident. Business continuity is key. Central command war rooms, empowering frontline, embracing action with commitment. And also the can-do spirit is also helping these organizations to focus on personal ownership at all levels in dealing with challenges and problems as they emerge. There have been many leaders who were of the opinion at a point of time that in my team, either we will have people who are high potential or no potential. This pandemic has helped them to look at people through a positive lens. And today, most of them admit and confess that there isn't anyone without potential. You can grade them in terms of low potential, medium potential, and high potential. And then you can actually look at both the performance dynamics and the potential and look at how they are spanning around a 9-blocker. Similarly, look at performance. There is a narrow view that in the past people looked at in terms of performance as something which is only a reflection of either technical proficiency or loyalty. But today people are saying, and there is a realization through the spirit that look, we need to look at people through a different lens, that performance is a function of skill and will. And so much so, I'm delighted to see more and more leaders articulating what skill means. Skill involves 5 components, as most of them seem to advocate today. 1, knowledge, applied knowledge, Experience number 3. The fourth one is the quality of judgment that they are able to take with the data and facts that is available. And the fifth one is accumulation of wisdom. All of these are elements of what we normally call a skill. There is also a realization that will has also got 5 constituent factors. The first one being attitude. The second one is the energy and the vitality that the person displays under crisis situations. The third one is self-initiative. Who is taking the self-initiative to run with a solution to a problem? The fourth one is essentially to do with the stretch that they are willing to take in terms of targets and goals. And the last one has to do with commitment. So when you really look at skill and will, you can look at on the x-axis skill and on the y-axis will, and look at low, medium, high, then the realization by leaders in trying to deal with their team is that one size fit all is not going to work. There are people who are on the inverted L on the top, who are relatively high on both skill and will, who need to be provided with the right environment for them to flourish and grow and contribute in difficult times. There are also a diagonal cut and people who are either very highly willing but not particularly skillful, or highly skillful but under-leveraged in terms of their willingness and commitment. And then, of course, there are some people who are also the also-ran type. So multiple styles of leaderships are noticed, are getting realized, are being appreciated and understood. And therefore, the sum total effect of the current pandemic is that people are not putting everybody into one box, but there are multiple approaches in dealing with multiple profiles of the followers who are in these different 9 boxes. And therefore, that is an insight which I find very clearly palpable and emerging in the course of the conversations that we are having. We all are aware that education and training meant we go across and attend a program. Now, virtual program and the whole field of education has had explosive outcomes. The principle of 50, 30, 20 are now being observed and adopted. 50% of our learning and development happens on the job. Some 30% comes through teamwork and cross-functional collaborative teams. And some 15, 20% is digital learning and trying to make sure that we discover our own learning styles to cope with digital and virtual learning platforms. And one of the things that I find is that there is an explosive self-accountability and adoption of programs and learnings of one's choice on one's own, rather than the organization prescribes, and making people to do things through formal, structured, brick and mortar learning and development programs. The can-do spirit also requires the capacity to listen. And the surface area of both the ears are much more than the surface area of our mouth. But still, there is a tendency for all of us to get into, I know, I tell you bloody well, go and do it. The shift from direction and control to one of asking questions, empowering and inviting ideas and thoughts through virtual skip levels and direct report interactions by leaders have dramatically altered the culture of most of the organizations that the leaders are communicating. There is greater democratization at the workplace today than ever before. And therefore, I'm reminded of what a story was referred about Nelson Mandela, that when he was a young child, he accompanied his father whenever the father went across and met with tribal communities. And one of the things that he was astonished to find about his father was that he only asked questions and he never expressed anything or cut across what others were saying in the process of trying to listen and observe the perspectives of the community. And he only responded towards the end in terms of what are his takeaways for action plan. So how do you actually sort of control yourself not to cut into others' expression of thoughts, but to listen fully, absorb, reflect, and respond. The difference between reacting and responding is fully appreciated and understood. Let me also bring out a couple of more interesting things about managing others. In the initial phase, in the month of April, May last year, I found a lot of senior leaders, especially in IT and ITIs, engineering, design, and global delivery organizations, were very concerned when they allowed people to work from home. And the most important question that they had was, how do we measure work? How do we measure output? How do we know that the person is actually delivering the 8 hours of contribution? And therefore, they introduced a number of measurement tools and softwares. But within about 3 months, when they discovered that without them, they were getting more than what they were able to actually sort of normally expected from the employees, then the whole focus shifted from work to one of well-being. You leave aside work because there is your grandma or someone in your senior family, extended family is having a problem. Your concern is to take care of them. And therefore, you don't have to get overtly concerned about work. Someone else will take care of it. Now, that big shift has actually happened because that spirit of trust and well-being started replacing the whole underlying concern about whether we are likely to see people shirking responsibilities and work, and therefore you need to actually control, direct, and measure and assess in order to get the maximum out of them. The smell of the place in organizational life has changed. From a leadership perspective, I would finally come to this conclusion that in trying to build this can-do spirit, I find more and more leaders are focusing on stretch and creating positive environment for people to contribute in excess of what they normally contribute. And therefore, constraints are less focused and stretch and positivism is more encouraged. The second big shift from compliance and making people fall in line to one of self-exploration, self-accountability, and self-discipline. And therefore, a number of new initiatives, including a well-established organizations, encouraging small teams of young employees trying to pick up ideas and run with it as if it's a startup that they are engaging with, and providing the required resources and support is again a clear manifestation of the spirit of wanting to conquer the virus in the organizational life. The third element is from control to one of building trust. And the last one, from looking at the relationship between organization and employees as an employment contract, it is more of one of challenge and support, one of coaching and developing, one of building certain level of competencies to deal with the challenges of the workplace. And these are some of the big positive shifts that I find. And therefore, that sums up my second lens, which is managing the followers or managing the team. Let me go to the last one, which is managing the business. And I'm aware we are just about 7, so in about 5 minutes. Now, can-do spirit requires future-proofing the company. In other words, future-proofing the company is, to me, more of an attitude. As against fostering innovation, driving revenue, getting market share. These were the obsessions before March, April 2020. Today, it is one of controlling costs and managing and ensuring that we are able to maintain a certain level of liquidity in the marketplace. And many leaders have actually come up with ideas which include certain proposed revised payment schedules to ease the liquidity crunch of the suppliers and the dealers, handling unforeseen set of roadblocks. In fact, the discussion suddenly turns around a capsized ship in Suez Canal and how that is going to apply our supply chain. So that, I think, is the network of thought process which is developing. There are plenty of challenges which automotive industry has faced because of the shortage of semiconductors, as some of us knows. And how do we actually improvise and deal with the shortage? And how do we actually create partnership with our OEMs? These are some of the concerns of the component drivers of automotive companies. And for that matter, manpower shortage, with the entire immigrant workforce suddenly disappearing, that we experienced much more last year, less so this year. So the differences in lockdown scenario is also helping organizations to build new positive resilience, because in the current wave, it is not national lockdown. There are selective, localized, even at the district and at the town and the village level. And multiple operational challenges are cropping up. And therefore, digitization in real time has now become an order of the day. And therefore, one of the challenges that most leaders experience is the quality of the digital proficiency that is available in our employee workforce. And therefore, sometimes it tends to end up in dumping stocks at the say, distributor end, and then realizing that his working capital is tied up and overstretched. And how do we actually sort of have real-time information to make sure that we don't fall into such traps, which in fact creates partnership challenges and difficulties. So the whole gamut of digital proficiency is now in the center of the plate. The other important aspect has to do with reviewing the organization in its totality. I think more and more organizations, despite the pandemic and the challenges in the marketplace, are taking a second look at strategy, their structure, and certainly they are also looking at their systems and processes which need to be digitized totally, styles of functioning that I talked about, the nature of staffing, and the competencies that you require, including two important competencies that are now being emphasized to run a business. One is adversity quotient, and the other is learning agility and learning from mistakes and failures rapidly. And most importantly, how do you actually create an organizational value framework where people at all levels feel that we are all aligned for a common purpose? And that, of course, also includes the extended community and the extended enterprise and the employees who are employed by the extended enterprise. Now, all this leads to organizations preparing themselves to become more and more strategically proactive. If you were to look at the past, bulk of about 70–80% of leadership time was devoted mainly on operationally reactive and operationally proactive topics. Increasingly, as you look at the month of June and you look at the half year for most organizations, then you begin to realize that there is a new competency which is emerging at leadership level, which can be called as strategically proactive and operationally proactive. The shift from reactive to proactive is a clear indication of the can-do spirit which we see. And there is also a clearer focusing on talent. Because one of the things that organizations are looking at, small and medium and large, is that post-pandemic, it is possible that a lot of younger workforce under 25 and 30 are likely to fundamentally ask the purpose of their life, because a lot of them have gone through very difficult challenges. And it is possible they are likely to make their own choices. And quite a few of them are encouraged to really look at opportunities in districts and rural India. And therefore, there is a possibility that there is some level of attrition which is likely to go up post the pandemic at some point of time when some semi-normalcy gets restored. So how do we actually ring fence and protect talent? And I think it's a concern which is a reflection of proactivism, as I would like to call it. The other one, of course, is that more and more leaders are also feeling the need to coach and to develop talent. There was a point of time people didn't realize that coaching can be part of their leadership style. Because of the fact that they are able to cut across many layers, and digital connectivity has helped them to appreciate, understand, and started listening to the inner voice of employees at all levels, and also customers and suppliers, the partners of the business. There is a clear realization that going forward, it becomes very, very important that we need to build and develop talent from within. And therefore, every one of us at all levels need to be a playing coach and not necessarily someone who is an external person coming and help. Internal coaching capability building has now become the order of the day to manage the business in the future. And this is somewhat like how you actually sort of transform a caterpillar into a butterfly. Now, a caterpillar doesn't attend a training program to become a butterfly. It has to go through that whole sort of stress and strain of going through the process of getting squeezed out of the cocoon in order to sort of stir up and fly out. And that, I think, is a leadership agenda. In sum, I think everyone that I'm coming across in the course of my work is saying that the can-do spirit can only come about when we ask a very simple question. Am I a better version of myself today? And can I become a better version of myself tomorrow and going forward? To sum up, I would just make a quick reference that there is also a gathering of a number of people who come from family businesses and enterprises. The whole world has got close to 80% of them from family businesses. There is also something that I am sensing in the course of my interaction with family business houses. And this can be summarized into some key dimensions where they seem to be focusing their attention on. One is family unity, family environment. What type of environment that we are promoting? If the organizational environment has to prepare for the future in very uncertain and difficult times going forward, are the family environment aligned with the organizational environment that you want to create? Revisiting business strategy and goals. Professionalization of the business is another theme that seems to be coming up for discussion. Rewards, how do we reward? How do we acknowledge? How do you recognize? How do you retain talent? And next generation development is another interesting theme. Ownership, wealth management, and leadership succession have been on the uppermost in the agenda of business families and family-driven businesses. And in all of this, there is also the greater scope for alignment, which all of them are experiencing, which is family, ownership, and business. How does these three circles very effectively overlap and integrate for producing a better future for the family businesses? So to conclude, I think can-do spirit is more of a mindset. Can-do spirit to my mind is a leadership agenda. And can-do spirit need to be exemplified by day-to-day behaviors of leaders at all levels. And I don't mean leaders in terms of business leaders and owners. Leadership at the shift manager level to a middle management level, to that of a departmental head to a head of the department level, right across organizational level, leadership at all levels need to realize that it is very crucial for them to really provide this sense of positivism all around. And this could be viewed through the lens of starting with managing oneself. It appears to me that if I am not good and inept, if I'm inept and if I'm not actually effective in managing my own self, it is not feasible for me to manage effectively my team. And if I don't manage myself and my team, it's also quite possible that my ability and capacity as a leader to manage business and deliver shareholder numbers, investors' numbers, also will be adversely affected. So at all levels, positivism and the can-do spirit need to emerge. And I presume some of these thoughts resonates well with most of you. And I'm sure you could probably add to this list. And probably in the morning circle, when you actually have your meetings with your teammates, ask this question: what more we need to do to enhance and to sustain the can-do spirit? The one last point is to watch out, because many a time, new behaviors get formed under crisis situations. There is also a tendency for all of us to regress back to old ways of doing things. So there is old ways of doing things versus the new ways of doing things. If the new normal need to be sustained, it becomes very important for leadership, and particularly top leadership, to sustain and to ensure that in a consistent fashion, those which are the positive turnaround on positivism and can-do spirit that we are creating in our organizational life is sustained, consolidated, and grown so that the total organization transformation happens over time. Thank you so much once again, President and the Management Committee, for this privilege and opportunity. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. That was indeed a masterclass on how to deal with this challenging situation with all the resources that are already available with us as business owners or managers or executives, or even as individuals. I mean, your three lenses through which you manifested the can-do spirit in the same situations, profound ones indeed, sir. And the point is like each one in the team being a unique brand, and the performance is a result of skill and will, and all real key points which all of us at different levels of management leadership can definitely take a leaf out of them. And profound ones like changes of the modes of communication, the hierarchy, direction and control versus seek opinions and go forth together. And the technology intervention, of course, everybody is talking about transformation, digital world as far as business is concerned. And ultimately the feeling of inclusivity at all levels of the pyramid. That's very important is what you said. I think that is a very, very important point. And ultimately becoming a better person yourself after each day and experience by being agile and nimble. Wonderful, sir. It's really a masterclass which you took now, and we must all thank you. I'm sure our Honorary Secretary will formally thank you, but I must thank you and our own Mr. V.R. Nair for connecting with you and getting you here for this session, and that too on the penultimate day of the lockdown being lifted, at least for Kerala. So looking up and looking to the horizon with a lot of positivity and hopes. This is a real beginning, I must say, of the second innings, which we are going to have, because many of us have lost out in between, but all of us sitting here are still there. We can try out all these points and hints which you have given us so that we can have a second innings to begin with. Thank you so much, sir. And let me now request our Honorary Secretary, Mr. Jomon George, to formally propose the vote of thanks. Jomon.
Good evening to all of you. I'm extremely honored to be sharing the screen with so many luminaries to propose a formal vote of thanks for this memorial lecture as we commemorate the life and times of a legend, a visionary leader who set a completely different trend in the Indian corporate and management landscape, and of course, in the later part of his life, delivered the best to the state of Kerala that we all of us belong to. Very respected President Madhav Chandran, past President A.K. Nair sir, R.R. Nair sir, who in such short span of time gave us a new perspective through three lenses, about which I'll say a little later. Mr. V.R. Nair, Mr. Tom Chandy, the proud son of an illustrious father, other managing committee members, A.C.K. Nair, particularly the memorial lecture chair, MC members and dear friends, almost 100 of us with us still online. It has been a completely different feeling for, if I say youngsters like us, to have been part of this lecture. It has been unique in many ways. Let me start with A.K. Nair sir, who had the privilege, proud privilege, I would say, of being a colleague, working with and enjoying the fragrance of the great management guru, K.T. Chandy sir. And your narration, a vivid recall, I would say, of the times you had with him and the way he brought up all the organizations in Kerala, KMA, one after the other, all those narration which you mentioned about him. It was an excellent diction and an exemplary delivery. Thank you so much, A.K. Nair sir, for that wonderful, short, sweet, memorizing, commemorative speech on K.T. Chandy sir. The keynote session goes without saying. Ideally, I think this should have been a full session, a 2-hour session for a annual management convention, because R.R. Nair sir, with this unparalleled global exposure, took us through a completely different route. And today it's really striking that the can-do spirit is quite relevant, because you have, as a management guru and a mentor, guiding global, multi-billion global organizations, have shown in your life, demonstrated in life, the can-do spirit. And when we commemorate K.T. Chandy sir, he's another one who has, in his own ways and style, very well demonstrated the can-do spirit. And not to flatter our president in these difficult times, Madhav is one, and R.R. Nair sir is the immediate past district governor of Rotary also. In the difficult times in these two, see, he's demonstrating the can-do spirit we are all benefited. And the way you test upon through the three lenses about self, dealing with others, and then the organizations. I would start with the last part. As a finance professional, as a chartered accountant, it was really striking that you mentioned about cost reduction, liquidity, and then being a little more considerate to the vendors today, because they are all MSMEs are reeling under a lot of pressure. So I would start in the reverse order, and then I think it's more about being participative. We had a session like servant leadership. So today it is not the terms that you used. You have to be a playing coach than being an instructionally powerful or authoritative. So that is slowly giving way to a new way of life. So organizations have undergone a cultural change, and individuals too. In that process, bosses have become participative, and the disciples have become more understanding. Therefore, as you mentioned, this is a catalytic agent for change, this pandemic. Therefore, the insights are so valuable. And it shows that for a small audience like this, you have come down, thanks to VR Nair, for your very, very strong friendship, and that you have consented to bless us, nothing less than that, I would say. Bless us at KMA with your wonderful discourse, on which is quite relevant, as you concluded, you did mention, to be able to relate that to the life and times of KT Chandy sir. So also a big thank you to ACK Nair for organizing this program. Hopefully, sir, flights will start in a few days from now. You're going to get busier. We're also looking forward so that we can have physically, as President always says, that R.R. Nair sir in our midst probably on a later date for our bigger programs, where larger audience would benefit out of his expertise and guidance. So wonderful evening altogether. Memories are very, very undying memories. And as KT Chandy sir remains a glistening teardrop on time, I think we should all rededicate ourselves to the good value systems, good management practices he lived for and he stood for. Thank you very much, President. Thank you, everyone, for having a wonderful KMA evening. Special thanks to the Secretariat for putting all the elements together, the technology, and of course to our sponsors, HEAL, Zera, and Medivision. And before I conclude, R.R. Nair sir, we have a memento which will be virtually displayed now and which will be sent across to you. This is.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're live in the session. And Tom Chandy sir, thank you so much for staying through. And as a proud son, your presence is so special. I made it like a very, very intimate one. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening. COVID is not fully gone. Lockdown may be lifted. So let us continue to be safe. And let's be hopeful as we remain careful. God bless everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary, and thank you, sir, once again. But before we end, let me just announce two important events coming up in the same month. We have another very important event coming up next week itself. That is on 24th June. We are having the MSME Summit of KMA as an inaugural event for the KMA MSME Forum, with 3 leaders explaining the current situations relevant to the MSME segment with regard to central and state policies, as well as the packages and offerings from the banking sector. Mr. Uday Kumar, Director Marketing of National Small Industries Corporation, to speak on the central government schemes. Mr. Biju P. Abraham, General Manager, District Industry Center, Tirnakulam, will speak on the state government schemes for MSMEs, and Mr. Adi Keshavan, yes, the Chief General Manager of SBI, to talk regarding the banking side. The highlight is that our new Minister for Industries, Law and COIR, Sri P. Rajiv, will be present during this event to inaugurate the summit and to address the delegates. So this is on 24th June, that's next week. And on 30th June, we have the 15th Leader Talk session of the year by Mr. B.R. Swaroop, co-founder and vice chairman of Star Communications Private Limited and brand director of Brands Consultants. He will address us on the topic, creating and nurturing brands. This will be an hour with an ad man who was behind many successful advertising slogans, including the much acclaimed tagline for our state, the God's own country. That is Mr. Swaroop BR on 30th of June. Let me also greet our past presidents, Mr. O.T.S. Nambiar and Mr. Prasad K. Panikkar, who joined the session in between. I've acknowledged other past presidents who were there in the beginning. I couldn't see this too. So thank you so much, all of you. And once again, a heartfelt thanks to you, sir, Mr. R.R. Nair, for being here, and Mr. Thomas Chandy for being present all throughout the session. and for all the blessings which you have done. And from the heavens, I'm sure Professor K.T. Chandy also must be smiling that all of us are remembering him with so much of gratitude and respect. Thank